Yeah, I'm not sure about the rested part. I know there were a few that I left behind and went to bed around midnight. So you guys are, unless you guys are a lot sprier than I am, I'm not sure how rested everybody is in this room. But yeah, so I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, MediaPost. So what we want to do today is talk a little bit about, there's just 20-minute quick talk about a project we just finished up at LoudDoor called Brand Satisfaction that we're really excited about. There's an element of it that I think is really relevant to pretty much anyone in this room. But I want to start out, I guess, maybe just a first introduction of LoudDoor, who we are, really quickly, so that for those of you who haven't met our team here this week, will kind of know what we do, what we're all about. And then quickly walk you through a new tool that we're really excited about called Brand Satisfaction, which is we hope will provide a lot more power and insights to folks, especially in your Facebook marketing strategies, but as well as there's a lot of broader ramification for it as well across social. So I guess we want to start with just kind of understanding who we are. So LoudDoor is a full-service research and targeting platform built on the backbone of Facebook. The idea, everything we're built around is helping marketers understand a Facebook audience and combine self-reported consumer insights, so self-reported and other real data about consumers with opt-in data from behind the Facebook wall to create a really rich demographic set that allows you to both target as well as message correctly and understand who you have on the platform. The core of what we believe is the most important element of managing a Facebook asset and managing a Facebook audience is understanding, do they consume your product? Are they an in-category consumer? How are you doing relative to your competitors? Am I reaching my consumer better than my competitors are? Or is there someone who's doing better than me, and what can I learn from that? How are my fans likely consumers of the brand? And if they're not, how do I reach people who are actual consumers of the brand? There's been so much focus on surface metrics like fan count and like count and engagement numbers, but there's very little endemic to the platform that allows you to really look at it and say, all right, I'm reaching a consumer and I'm affecting consumption on my product or my brand or loyalty to my brand. So that's really the core of what we wanted to do. And we do that via a very powerful survey platform that deploys market research tools and kind of a lot of traditional ones, but then we apply some very innovative logic and platform mechanics behind the scene to make sure we very efficiently and at scale help on people understand consumers in a very real way. So one of the burning questions that most of our clients have had over the last 2 years that comes up again and again and again as we deal with companies across the spectrum of social, there were a couple of themes that kept coming back. The core themes were the demographic makeup and consumption makeup. So are they consumers? And then the other one, almost every question every client wanted to know was, are my fans likely recommenders of my brand? Are they likely to recommend my brand to others? The genius of Facebook's setup is this idea of calling things fans. Clicking a brand page means you're a fan. Our mind immediately says, oh, gee, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Redskins. No matter how bad that is over the last 20 years, I'm still a fan. And I really do like them. But that's not really the case if people like a brand and are a fan of a brand on Facebook. So that theme keeps coming back again and again. And so we decided to do something we thought was going to be very ambitious and attack this with one simple goal of saying, what if we just asked fans of Facebook pages, brand pages on Facebook, whether they actually would recommend the page? Let's figure out who the real fans of a page are. And the outcome of that was effectively what we believe to be one of the most ambitious research projects ever, where we want to go out and we survey every large brand page on Facebook, fans of those users, getting a solid sample of those users and asking them the core question of, are you likely to recommend this brand to your friends or colleagues? And then beyond that, how much product do you consume in this category? What's your household income? And I'll walk you through that flow. So I thought I'd do two things real quick, given we only have about 20 minutes here, or I guess 15 now. To kind of walk you basically through the consumer flow so you can get an understanding of it, and then kind of take you through some screenshots of how we utilize that data and aggregate it in order to give something that's actionable back to the people who are trying to crack Facebook messages, trying to acquire audiences, trying to deal with whether or not my messaging is affecting my audience in a way that can provide real ROI, et cetera. And then in the end, I'll have some screenshots I want to walk you through the dashboard. I'd love to walk you through, obviously, the full-scale demonstration of it. I have a URL I'll give you at the end to kind of give you guys a beta access to it to kind of be able to walk through it on yourselves later. So here's what I wanted to do. First, let's kind of walk through the consumer flow so you kind of get in your head how we get the data we get. And then I'll walk you through how we aggregate that and how it can be then used to target your messaging and Facebook strategies. So we really start basically with simply building panels of users. We do that through a variety of ways. The most common of which is simply the media, paid media that we get to get people into the funnel. And we start with a very transparent process where the consumer knows that we're asking for their feedback for the simple reason of giving brands that they care about feedback about the brand. So it's a very clear process. We have it, and then the process works basically by bringing them through the typical opt-in permissions. So we have a double opt-in process where we explain to them what we want this for, then they walk into this and they allow the survey application, which you guys have all seen this page a million times if you're even breathing. So then we solve the application. Then we take them right into the flow. We lead with the simple question of how likely are you to recommend the following brands to your friend or colleague? Now remember, we went through the application process, so we have an application installed. Now we know what this person actually does like on Facebook. We know that they are fans of, say, Aldi or Coca-Cola or JetBlue. So it's anonymous to the point that we don't tell them we don't tell them why we know that, but we're simply asking, are you fans of Aldi in this case? Are you fans of Coca-Cola? And then we rate that on a scale of 0 to 10. But then we dig deeper into the real meat of understanding who this consumer is. We ask things like product consumption. How much grocery spending do you have? How much do you go to the movies, and how often do you go to the movies? How much do you travel? Household income, self-rated credit. We go through a series of really deep metrics about who the consumer actually is and the consumption. And then we dig also into what motivates them to consume a product, what motivates them to get involved with a Facebook page on Facebook. In other words, we want to know whether or not why did you like this page? If you're a fan of Aldi or Coca-Cola, why do you like it? And that'll help you. We think we'll get to that in a second. Help drive a lot of strategies off the back end of this. So the next step was, all right, well, what do we get out of this? We have coverage as of today over 15,000 brands on Facebook, 15,000 Facebook brand pages. We have millions of demographic, attitudinal consumption data points. We're repeating this survey every month. The idea is to make a tracker that allows you to track and target this rich data to create custom segmentations and other sorts of messaging strategies on Facebook. We plan to repeat this every single month and we'll have a monthly brand tracker of the health of these brands and the audience composition. So then we said, okay, well, now we have all this data. We know we can get it. We know via the strategy, we know we have the ability to cover these brands and get this information. How to make it so that it's something that really is intuitive and usable. So the idea is then, I want to make it easily available. I want it instantaneous. I want someone to be able to come in immediately. They don't have to wait. The minute you need this information, it's at your fingertips. I want it to be something that's simple to navigate, simple, easy to understand. I need metrics that can summarize this down to really measure the effect I'm having on a day-to-day basis on my audience and on the metrics that I'm trying to push. And then I want to make it actionable. I want to do something with it. Data is data until you can do something with it. So the idea here is to take this information and distill it in a way as something to say, what are the strategic steps that can be taken if I have an issue with what I'm seeing from the data? So we decided to look. One of the things that we landed on really early on was we needed a simple way to summarize this stuff so that it is comparable. Just lining up a bunch of graphs is hard to really make sense of. So we landed on saying, okay, well, let's summarize everything around the idea of a Net Promoter Score. If you're not familiar with Net Promoter Score, there's a lot more detail on our website, on Wikipedia, a lot of other places. It's actually a system that's built by Bain and Satmetrics, so that a lot of you probably are very familiar with that company. But basically the gist of it is saying, asking likelihood to recommend, and then distilling it down between people who are real promoters, who rate you very highly, and people who are detractors, who rate you poorly, and basically subtracting the two from each other and combining it into a score. There's a lot of research around this that you can dig into if you're really interested. But basically, it's a simple way to measure brand loyalty and compare brand to brand without in a really way that's really much more intuitive. So we decided to summarize all of our likelihood to recommend around that concept, in the sense that if we're thinking about a fan of someone who really recommends a brand, let's score how loyal, how likely a group of Facebook fans are to do that. So what do we do with it once we have it? So the way the tracker works is you can basically log in, grab a brand you're interested in, follow that brand, and track it on a monthly basis as you go forward. So we use, as a case study here, we'll use Whole Foods and a grocery store segment. Generally, you want to look at things in terms of segments because these scores really are relative. But in either brand, we felt like it's an easy dashboard to follow this time. Am I affecting this likelihood to recommend concept? So using Whole Foods, I'll say now we can go through and add additional brands. In this case, I picked Food Lion, Publix, and Meijer. And I also picked Aldi, who happened to, we actually have a leaderboard, but some of you may have seen it got pushed out last week of the top 20 brands, the most loyal brands on Facebook. Aldi just happens to be, I think it was number 5 on the list. Of all the brands on Facebook, they're one of the highest had the brand had some of those loyal fans. That's a survey of over 500 of their fans, over 2,000 of the rest of these brands. So there's a really strong, deep coverage that makes the sample very valid. It also then gives me a lot of ways to cut this data to really dig down and find really reliable measures of what drives this. So the first thing that jumps out to me, if I look at this data, I look at Whole Foods. I don't know if you can see it. Like now I'm looking on the screen. It's kind of small, but Whole Foods has an NPS there of 30. Where relative to a couple of others like Public and Meijer and Aldi, 55 and 62. So those two are two brands that are really high. Now, if you look elsewhere, there's also other places I've seen scores for Whole Foods, which are generally a lot higher than this. So the first thing I would do is I would step back and say, well, gee, I love Whole Foods personally. The Columbus Circle store in New York is one of my favorite stores in the city. There's many a Saturday I spend way too much money in there and then end up not eating it all. But so it's a great store. I know the people generally who shop there really like the experience of the store. So what is it about the Facebook audience that's not lining up per se with what I believe the general perception of the brand is, and what I think I've seen other metrics kind of known consumers that are taking sort of in-store sample that generally the scores are a little bit higher. So what is it that's driving this difference? So what the tool then allows you to do is that we go further than just this loyalty metric, look into demographics. Not only let's cut the data and figure out what's going on. Next thing we do, let's take it by household income. And the first thing that jumps out at you is that the green bars get longer and the red bars get shorter in the higher income levels. So clearly, what probably does make sense, Whole Foods is a higher bracket grocery store typically. It's more of a organic food. So there's typically, that's the niche market generally I would assume they shoot for. And they clearly trend much higher as you go up that income scale. So that's one interesting fact. Okay, well, I think I'm trending right in the demographic that I'm shooting for strategically. So so maybe I need to understand the composition on my page. Maybe I'm getting a different demographic than generally is my day-to-day store shopper. Next step, let me look at monthly spending. Again, they tend to over-index in the higher consumption. So folks who are consuming much higher amounts of groceries on a monthly basis also tend to rate Whole Foods much higher. So again, an indicator that probably in their higher income, larger families, more affluent, larger grocery spends, they do over-index relative to what they would do in terms of actual loyalty. So again, an indicator that perhaps the page composition isn't right now matching their general demographic of their actual consumer. So then we go back, and I'm going to skip over this now because I want to come back to it. We also ask things like, what motivates you to like a page on Facebook? What is it that drives you to say, I want to be a fan of Whole Foods, or I want to be a fan of Aldi? In this case, what you see is one of their lower scores actually is the first one up there. If you can't read it, says to receive discounts or promotions. So one of the things we know about Facebook consumers is they like getting deals. There's a lot of research around that. We can share with you separately as well, but that's one of the things that drives a lot of consumers. So they have a very low score with folks on their fan page who said, I like fan pages because I like getting discounts. And they have a very low score in that category. So there's two things. We know that they underperform in lower income, lower consumption, overperform in higher income, higher consumption, and they're underperforming with groups of people who say they like pages for discounts. Now let's go back, let's dig into my page itself. Now I turn this data around. Rather than focusing on the likely to recommend, let's look at the actual demographics of my Whole Foods page. So right away I say, okay, I definitely skew much lower income. That skew on their page is well over 50% of the page makes less than $50,000 a year. Now that's generally in line with their peers, but again, their demographic is not necessarily the same demographic as, in this case, Food Lion and some other just peers that are actually much more of perhaps maybe a lower end of the market segment targeting. Also, let me look at monthly spending as well. Again, they have in the categories where they are the most loyal consumers, they have the lowest demographic. They're not reaching that higher consumption group. They skew much lower in actual consumption. So we know two things. We're reaching a lower income audience. We're also reaching a lower consumption audience. But I know that my best consumers are the consumers who are in the opposite end of that spectrum. So what do I do then? So there's two things I want to talk about. Now, in terms of actually taking this data and doing something with it, there's two things we can do. One is we can go after and acquire actual consumers, people who we believe will be the right target demographic. People who are in the higher income bucket, they consume more in category, and we know that we can reach those people in a way, we know we can reach them with our core message of who Whole Foods is. We know they like good brands, they buy high quality, they purchase a lot in volume. So that's how do we then go after those people? Now remember what we did is, again, as part of gathering this data, we gather it through the opt-in application. So we also know everything about everything in this demographics profile. So now I can take that data set, given how deep it was, and I can parse that down, and I say, okay, how do I find individuals who are in that category, higher income, higher consumption of groceries, and how do I boil that down? So what we do, I go in the tool, and I categorize, basically I pick the attributes I want. I want grocery spend of X, I want consumption levels of Y. So things that are the actual purchase behavior and consumption behavior, rather than just that surface stuff that you get out of the insights. I'm not just looking for age and gender. I want to know actual consumption behaviors, and then index that back against my targeting set. So in this case, when you do it in this way, when it's a scientific way, rather than simply saying what likes to my page already has. So if Whole Foods goes and targets their own page, remember, they're going to get people like they already have. So you're going to skew, you're going to compound potentially, if you've reached a different audience than you want to reach, by targeting what your page already likes, you're just compounding that error. Vice versa, if you're trying to guess and say, okay, what do I think will over-index, you may be targeting another page who's made another error. So maybe I think if I'm Whole Foods, maybe I really feel like Odawalla juice is something that higher income people would really like. Well, maybe Odawalla juice made a mistake. Maybe their fan segment is the wrong fan. How do you know who they have? Right? So what this allows me to do is say, okay, well, of the higher income, higher consumption, I'm not going to guess. I'm just going to see what do these people over-index within Facebook. So in this case, things pop out of this you may not necessarily think of. So we have Lindt chocolates. You're 160% more likely to be in this category if you are a fan of Lindt chocolates than the average consumer. So now take all these things down and boil them down. I'm able to provide this really rich set where I can quantify, if I buy against this target set, here's the percentage of that group which will be in my demographic. So I have a way to say, I want this demographic, I want to measure whether I get it in my ad campaign. So now for the first time I have the ability to target precisely who I want and target people who I know and do it in a way that I can measure the end result and measure not as a cost per fan, but as a cost per consumer. The type of person who I really want to get at. So when we look at this with our clients, that's what we want to have them focus on. Stop focusing on the cost of the click or the cost of the fan. What is the cost of the consumer? And that really is a message that really resonates when you start talking about ROI. You start talking about my paid media and how do I return that into an investment that really makes sense in the long run. And this is there's plenty of case studies. We can show you this. There's stuff on our website. We can talk you through it in person. But again and again, we've shown clients that when you start measuring what they have on their page in terms of their target consumer, what did you pay to get it? If you paid, or if you're a paying media buyer, what you're trying to build out again, when you start looking at that cost of when you actually look at the page you get relative to what the cost of the actual consumer was, generally when you start targeting like this, the cost per consumer dramatically drops. This stuff pays for itself hand over fist when you start thinking about it in terms of actually eliminating all the wasted impressions around getting someone who's not a likely consumer of your brand. But it doesn't stop here. And now the next step is but I already have an audience, right? I am Whole Foods, and I already have an audience. I have an asset that I built. I don't want to waste it. So what do I do with that? The next step is I'm saying, all right, let's look back at what is it that my page wants? What are these fans? How do I create messages that match that? They're saying, so if you remember what I said earlier, one of their lowest performing demographics on the page in terms of brand loyalty was the group who said, I like my Facebook pages because I want discounts and promotions. That's what I want. And in this case, Whole Foods has a 70% of their page lists that as their top as a top driver of motivation of liking this page. Their consumers want discounts and promotions. I don't know anything about Whole Foods strategy, but if I know that that's what a lot of people on my page want, and I also know that the least satisfied consumer group on my page are the people who are looking for that, then it gives me insight to say, well, maybe I should focus on providing this audience with that. Now, again, if you think about it, the other thing I can do, not only can this drive my content strategy in terms of building things out into something that I can craft messages around what they're looking for, but I can also target off this. So I can go back here, I can create an audience. All right, just give me the people who name as their primary attribute of what they want in the page, the discounts and promotions people. So who are those people? Well, and I can create the same targeting set around that. Now if I want to drive engagement in that group, I can create my post segment crafted around a discount campaign or a promotion campaign, and I can target just those people who that's a primary driver of behavior for. So don't waste that coupon on someone who really is focused just on, they really want high quality organic milk. I mean, if that's really for that person, go back to that purchase behavior, build an audience around folks who their primary driver is quality. And then say, okay, let me focus and promote a post and build engagement around that group of people. The ability now to say, let me acquire a target segment that matches my demographic, and then use my knowledge about that audience that I have to craft my message, and then where I do promote posts or I do promote messages to that group, promote it in a way that's scientifically focused on their demographic likes and interests, or their demographic motivators, really is something that provides hand over fist benefit and is really the only way then to measure whether or not I'm actually affecting my audience. The applications of this are endless. The idea for us was obviously to create something that you really can attract folks to your brand who really are promoters, determine ways to upgrade people who are, or to reach people with the right message to change their opinion of a brand, and then target folks who are able to go in and say, listen, these people aren't right. How do I reach them with something that will actually change their perception of my brand? How do I measure that? And given all that, the beauty, the thing we're so excited about is that for the first time ever, in my opinion, there's something out here now where I can create a test environment. I can actually prove out whether or not I'm changing. Is my creative actually moving the needle in this audience? If I go after, for example, if I want to go back after these folks who are of the discount folks, if I looked at it and say, if I really started an aggressive campaign to focus on that people for whom that's a primary motivator, I can create a control group that says, all right, here's my number, here's my message pre-campaign, and as I go with this, am I affecting these people's likely to direct my brand? Am I actually measuring it? So if I can change that score, if I can push it up, I can demonstrate to myself that what I'm doing, my campaign, my social strategy, is actually changing and affecting the attitude and affectations of the brand of my fans. Ultimately, the whole goal in our mind is to build a tool that's very simple, it's very intuitive, to help people take a step back and start measuring, start thinking about a Facebook audience and a Facebook asset not as a like count or as engagement, get beyond the surface metrics and really focus on consumption drivers and affect the actual loyalty of a brand audience. So I'll stop here. I think my time's up. I just wanted to, there's actually a URL here. If you log into brandtestpacking.com and /Captiva, we're actually in beta right now. And so we just released the January data. The dashboard that have 3 months of data in it. We're anchored in January 1st, and this will be an ongoing tracker. Love to have you guys in it and poke around in it, poke holes in it, obviously too, if there's better ways to utilize it. But we're really excited about it. We'd love to have you check it out, and this will get you in through the beta process right away. We'll make sure that gets set up this afternoon. If you want to log in and to get that invite, we'd love to have you on board with us. That's all I have. I'll be around the rest of the afternoon. I'm actually leaving tonight to go find some snow, unfortunately. I'm not sure what's wrong with me, but I do want to go skiing. But Rick will be here the rest of the week. We'd love to give you a full demonstration of the dashboard, and kind of while we're here, I can open it up and drill down the brands you're interested in, and be more than happy to do that. With that, I'll turn it back over, guys, and go next speaker.
Thanks, David. David, I think, where's Rick? Can't miss Rick. Rick's been at the last couple of summits. Rick is on David's team, and anyone else from your team here? The two of you guys. Okay, so grab Rick or grab David before he heads north to get more insight on this. So thanks again. Great presentation. Lots of data, lots of information. We're going to take 3 minutes just to refresh the coffees, and then we're going to get started with the morning keynote, and Kathy will take over. Is Kathy here? Where's Kathy? Kathy Taylor. Oh, hi, honey. See, your microphone's off because mine's on, and that's how we do it. That's how we do it, Kathy. All right, we'll all be back in just a couple of minutes.